Welcome to the Essence of Liberty podcast. This is the Horsemanship podcast where we discuss all things liberty to help you understand, connect, communicate, and play with your horse in a gentle, subtle, and force-free way. We'll get a bit nerdy about equine psychology and learning theory to understand the science behind it all. And we'll also dive into how to motivate your horse, ways to strengthen your relationship, solving those common problems, and how to use liberty as a way to build your horse up physically, mentally, and emotionally, all in half an hour or less. I'm Dr. Nadine Lindblom, former equine veterinarian, and I'd like to invite you to join me on this journey as a student of the horse. Hello, and welcome back to another episode. In this episode, I want to dive into the differences between the horse and the human brain. And I want to get a little bit nerdy about this because it's really, really important to understand this because it affects the way that we communicate with our horses, how we connect with our horses, how we interpret their behavior and what we expect of them. It's just really, really important to understand how horses experience the world differently to humans. Now, if you look around in the world and you look at all the animals and the living beings that are on this earth, humans are quite different, right? There's something that really sets humans apart from other animals. I mean, we are mammals, but we certainly do things quite differently from animals. And the main reason for that is because we have this amazing power to use our brains and language and abstract thought, and we can reason and think logically and do all these incredible things with our brain that has led us to create the world that we live in today. If you look around, you are probably listening to this podcast on your iPhone or your phone, maybe on the computer. You are probably sitting in a house. If you look around you everywhere, you are surrounded by human creation and the things that humans have been able to do. And that's all coming from the human brain. And I mean, we've gone as far as creating rockets and exploring the universe. And we sit here and question the meaning of life. And we do all these really, really crazy things with our brains. And that is the main thing why we are so different from other animals. But we do have a lot of similarities with other animals as well. If you look at our nervous system and the way that we react to threats, for example, if you are spooked by something or if you get scared of something, you are going to have the exact same physiological reaction as an animal, as a horse or a cat or a dog. Your heart rate is going to increase. Your pupils are going to dilate. You are probably going to feel like you want to run away or you want to fight or you're going to freeze. That's all really similar between, we are mammals at heart, right? We still have those same responses deep down. But along the way in evolution, humans developed this incredible neocortex that has just started to overpower almost our mammalian ways of navigating the world. For the most part, most humans, we live in our heads constantly. We have different practices that we are very often recommended to do to get back into our bodies, right? Meditation is great. You sit and you breathe and you think you are in the present moment, and that is all to bring you back into your body because we spend so long just being in our heads. The thing is that animals, they just don't have this same ability to use abstract thought the way that humans do. Now, some species, they get closer. We have chimps that are a lot more inclined in that way, and dolphins, and some species that are just a lot more intelligent than others. Predators as well, like cats and dogs, they do have a little bit more of a development in their brain to be able to think a little bit more intelligently, so to speak, because they need to find their prey and they need to solve a lot of puzzles in order to get their food. Herbivores, however, like horses, they in evolution never really had a reason to develop their brain in this way, right? Because all they needed to do was put their heads down and eat. And if a threat came along, they just needed to react quick enough to run away. That's not to say that horses are not intelligent. I mean, I personally deeply believe that horses are extremely intelligent, but in a little bit of a different way to how humans would generally think of intelligence. As humans, we think of intelligence for how well we can think, right? But horses are extremely intelligent in how they can sense the environment around them and how they can react to that and how they can form really deep connections with their herd members and even people, and how they can sense as a herd each other's emotions as well. It's a different type of intelligence. But through evolution, horses did not really have a reason to develop much of a problem-solving type of brain, because food is kind of everywhere. They don't have to solve puzzles in order to get their food. They just needed to be able to put their heads down and forage and run away from danger, form connections with their herd, and reproduce. If we want to compare humans and horses or humans and animals, we can think of humans as more thinking creatures. We're very goal-orientated. We're very much in our heads all the time. And as animals, as feeling creatures, they navigate through their life, through their emotions, through their instincts. They allow these emotions that flow through their body to dictate how they are going to behave. Humans, they also have these feelings and emotions, but we usually let the thinking part of our brain to dictate how we're going to behave, and we have a lot more self-control than animals who are very reliant on their emotions to guide them as to how to react and how to behave. And I want to reiterate again that I'm not saying that animals have absolutely no ability to think or anything like that. They do have an ability to think, but realistically, humans have a much greater ability to think in this way. Animals are feeling creatures, particularly horses. They're very feeling creatures, and humans are thinking creatures. Now, why is this important? It's important because the more that we learn to feel in our training, the more we spend time with our horses in a feeling state, in a present and grounded state where we're really in touch with our feelings and our emotions, the deeper we can connect with them and the easier we can communicate with them. I like to think of it a little bit as, like humans, we have a human brain and we have an animal brain. Our human brain is this thinking part of us, and our animal brain is these parts that we have in common with all the other mammals on the earth, our autonomic nervous system and our basic emotional systems. And what I have found throughout my training with my horses is that the more I can be in a state of feeling, the more I can understand them, and the more they respond to me in that state. If I am in my head, they're a little bit less willing to connect with me. And of course, I don't have a specific study or any research to back up that that's actually something that affects the training, but from my experience, I have definitely felt a really big difference in if I take some time to meditate before the sessions, for example, to get into a really present and grounded state where I'm really in my body, versus if I come into the paddock to work with them after a full day of really busy computer work, then they are a lot less kind of interested in engaging with me. It's like just a very interesting response that I have noticed, a really interesting pattern. And I do encourage you to go out and experiment with that as well. Now, in the training, this is really important because it brings a lot more awareness into your body, which means that you can be a lot more precise in your communication with your horse. If you want to go even deeper in this, you will also notice, or I don't know about you, but I have definitely felt in my training with my horses that I can feel my horses a lot better when I am in a more present state, in a more feeling state. I can start to feel when they get uncomfortable. I can start to feel when they get anxious. And whether that is just me reading their body language and starting to feel that in my own body, or whether it's some kind of co-regulation type of situation going on where they get stressed and I feed off that and I also get stressed. But the more that we can get in tune to these feelings of where you can feel your horse and his emotions, the more you can help your horse then regulate into a calmer state. What often happens is that we see our horses get really wound up, and then we also start getting wound up because maybe we're afraid of handling them when they're becoming dangerous. Maybe we're worried that the horse is going to hurt themselves. We're just worried that something is going to go wrong. We're in our heads. We're thinking about the worst possible scenario that can happen out of this. And then we get worried. And then the horse gets more worried because we are worried. And as herd animals, they are really sensitive to what the emotions of the herd members are doing. Not that horses necessarily think of us as their herd members, but if we are in that situation and the horse is somewhat connected to us, if we get worried, the horse is also going to start to get more and more worried. But if we can flip that a little bit on its head and we can say, oh, I see that you're getting worried. I'm starting to feel worried as well. But because I have the ability to regulate myself through my thinking brain, I can start to work on calming myself down so that you can have a more calmer space to regulate with. And this becomes really interesting to work with in itself because it gives your horse a very safe space to then regulate with. When your horse gets more tense and more upset and more worried or whatever it is that's happening, if you can then be in touch with your own emotions and your nervous system and you can calm yourself down, that will then help your horse calm down as well. That's one of the reasons why this is really interesting to keep in your mind as you're working with your horses. The other thing that's really, really important is this aspect of kind of like anthropomorphism when we are interpreting our horses' behaviors. Because if we don't understand this difference between horse and human brain, where the horses don't have the ability to think in this abstract way that humans can, then we run the risk of applying human characteristics onto the horse and onto the behaviors that the horse is showing. And that's what anthropomorphism is. It's a very fancy word for putting human characteristics onto an animal or an object. And the problem that can happen there is that we misinterpret the horse's behavior as if the horse was human. As feeling creatures, they are just behaving the way that their emotions tell them to behave. If your horse gets really stressed and gets really anxious, he's going to behave in that way. He may start feeling the need that he needs to move his feet around. He may feel the need to fight. He may feel the need to buck or rear or react in however his instincts are telling him to react in that moment in order to stay safe. And if you then look at those behaviors and you put human characteristics onto that and you say, no, the horse is just being naughty and he's just trying to get out of work and he's just trying to be the boss over me and he's just trying to be a bad horse, which that in itself, in order to deliberately misbehave, that requires an element of abstract thought. If you apply those human characteristics onto your horse's behavior, that's going to change the way that you respond to that behavior, right? If you're looking at a horse doing those types of behaviors and you say, oh, well, he's being really naughty, that's then going to lead you to respond with potentially punishment. You're going to say, stop doing that. You may punish the horse for behaving in that way. However, if we then look at this behavior from this feeling point of view, where we know that, okay, well, the horse is behaving because he is feeling in a particular way, and he's not able to use this way of thinking where he can just deliberately misbehave, then we are going to realize that this horse is struggling with the situation. Horses are energy conservative beings, right? Horses don't want to expend energy that they don't need to. If this horse is bucking and rearing and getting really upset about something, we can look at that and be like, oh, well, this horse is struggling with the situation for one reason or another. Maybe he's scared. Maybe he doesn't understand. Maybe something hurts. And when you look at that behavior from that point of view, you're going to change the way that you respond to that behavior. So instead of now responding with punishment, you are going to respond with compassion and with kindness, and you're going to try to help your horse through it. You're probably going to try to investigate if there's any pain, if the saddle fits properly, if the bridle fits properly, if he understands what it is that you're asking him to do. Does he have severe separation anxiety and is acting out because he's too far away from the herd and he just feels unsafe because the herd is leaving? They just galloped away and now he's having a little bit of a panic attack because he's a herd animal and his instincts are telling him to go towards the herd. There are so many things that will affect the way that you interpret the behavior. But the more that we understand how horses think, feel, and experience the world, the better we are going to get at responding to that behavior appropriately. I hope that gives you a little bit of food for thought on how to think about how your horse may experience the world a little bit differently to how a human would experience the world, and how that can influence training and your relationship together. In the Essence of Liberty Online Academy, I do spend a lot of time talking about this kind of stuff in the theory lessons so that you have a really good understanding of the theory behind horsemanship and horse training and how it works and how that then works its way into the training. We spent a lot of time on the theory before getting into the practical stuff with the 3 horses that we worked with throughout the program. If you absolutely love exploring these types of concepts, then I am sure you would absolutely love the Academy. I have dropped a link in the show notes of this episode to a free masterclass that I have on how to begin Liberty training with your horse, and also a link into the Essence of Liberty Online Academy enrollment page. I really hope to see you in the Academy soon, but if not, I will see you back here for another episode very soon. Bye for now.